sir, you can proceed for another few minutes.
Yes. Well, I got these questions here. Yeah.
Now, yeah, we'll go to the question answer session now. And the first question to you, sir. The sustainability is in present times appears to be like the horizon, which recedes the nearer we go. How do we reach out?
Well, you see, it's not always easy to know what is happening in another human being's mind, in other human beings' minds. But I think we've all seen, I'm not an optimist, we've all seen, I presume we've all seen, videos showing dolphins swimming in rivers where they never swam before. Because of the lockdowns all over the world, the amount of industrial activity and pollution and so on has reduced. And I read in the Hindu that 90 cities in India have their pollution has reduced very considerably. So this is the good news. But of course, what we don't know is when the business all start up again, when the industries all start up again, is it all going to be back to square one? I think in that regard, I think we can't go around straightening other people up. It's that's again a form of force, and they will only react and resist. But if we ourselves are learning how to be sensitive to other human beings, how to listen to other human beings, how to be serious in our interactions and also joyful, then I think there's an opportunity that people will start listening to the serious things, the climate change. I'm part of a group of people who are writing a textbook for schools on climate change. It is very serious. I have no doubt about it. One good friend of mine says he doesn't believe there's such a thing as global warming. He's a homeopath. Now, I don't know why he's so strong in his opinion. But yes, I mean, we need to share with people these problems, not set about conditioning them, but set about exploring what has to be done to improve the environment.
The second question is, how can we bring in the happiness quotient in education amongst the children and educators both?
Well, I'll be rather blunt here. I think happiness is something which comes uninvited. If I'm out to be happy, I'm only going to be a pain to other people and confuse myself. You can't go chasing after happiness. So, and the phrase happiness quotient is presumably derives from intelligence quotient, IQ. And long ago, I forget the name of the psychologist, somebody will probably be able to tell us. He came up with multi-intelligence, is it not? Some 8 different, multiple intelligence, that's right. Do you remember his name? American.
Gardner. Howard Gardner.
Is it?
Howard Gardner came up with multiple intelligence.
Yes. So there's not one, and then he didn't use the word quotient. Quotient implies measurement. How on earth can you measure happiness? If you think you can measure happiness, then I think you become a robot. I think we can leave that behind. So how can we bring happiness in education among the children and educators both? It's not so easy. Among the educators, my general impression is that they are overworked, most of them, and therefore they don't get enough time to relax and really enjoy life. But that's secondary, because if you are enjoying being a teacher, then that doesn't matter too much. But for the teacher to be happy, well, I think, you see, it's like this. You've got to know where your unhappiness is. You've got to understand what is unhappiness. When you've understood, when you've been depressed and you've stayed with it, and you see, this is another thing that came up during these lockdowns. I believe many people were depressed. One of my school parents was so depressed he went to bed. And then I think he had his son came and said, "Come on, Dad, I'll help you with the business." So they went back to work. So yes, I mean, so staying with your unhappiness, staying with your depression, knowing that you're a jealous person, knowing that you're an aggressive person, this is all very crucial. Once you are aware of yourself, aware of the fact that yourself is the same self as everybody else has, it's rather unnecessary to kind of compare yourself with others. Others will have maybe more brains than you. By the way, I'm not Brain Jenkins, I'm Brian Jenkins. This is an old experience I've had. So Brain Jenkins is advising you to not go chasing after happiness. If you are watching yourself, learning about yourself, happiness will naturally arise. And with the children, if you're happy and you have a sense of affection for the children, you will help them to be happy. Sometimes you may have to be strict. Sometimes you may have to tell them, "No, look, you're fooling around, you're wasting your life." And because they do tend to do that, they're like puppies. So yes, so we have to tell. That's it.
Okay. The third question is, does Krishnamurti's ideology fit in the modern time?
I'm very glad you raised this question, Meera, because I have read this time and again when parents apply to put their children in our school, this word Krishnamurti's ideology. Now, Krishnamurti had no ideology. I spent 14 years discussing and listening to him, and it was very apparent. Ideology means you've got more or less a fixed set of ideas, which you want to condition people to follow. And he never took that line. His line always was to ask us to think for ourselves. I can recall a discussion with Krishnamurti when he was asking us, he said, "The children are coming to the school very soon. How are you going to respond to them? Are you going to condition them? Are you free of your conditioning? How can you be free of your conditioning?" I'm 75. I'm still not free of my conditioning. It's a lifetime's work. Maybe for some people they can deal with it earlier. I don't know anybody. So Krishnamurti, yes, I knew him well enough to know that he was free of his conditioning. If you want to dispute with me on that point, that's rather a lot to talk about. So, coming back to the question. Yes, sorry, I was telling you about a discussion. So he was saying, can you be free of your conditioning? And the other teachers, most of whom were Westerners, and you see, you Indians are all pretty smart, especially in this area. And Europeans tend to people looking pretty glum when I'm saying that, but it doesn't matter. So they think they've been educated religiously to believe. And so they would, when they answered Krishnamurti's question, how can you be free of your conditioning? They would come up with Krishnamurti type answers because they would have read his books and listened to him talking and all of that. And he was very impatient with such responses. He said, no, sir, you haven't got it. You haven't got it. So then I stopped myself for half a minute or so. And I asked myself, can I be free of my conditioning? And I turned to Krishnamurti and I said, it's impossible. So then he looked at me and he said, don't block yourself. So then I got the point. Yes, definitely to be free of conditioning is a very tough thing to do. But it's also pointless to block yourself by saying so. There's a lot of work to be done in this area, and it derives from reading Krishnamurti and also interacting with other people. That's what I've seen. So, yes, of course, it's absolutely relevant, very much relevant in the modern times, where we see that there's so much control going on of our minds, attempts to control our minds, and human beings, more and more of them, not able to live in harmony, threats of violence. All this is highly relevant to what Krishnamurti was saying.
Okay. The next question is, why is teaching the least respected profession in our India, which has given the concept of guru to the world?
Well, a brief and simple answer. I have studied Indian culture quite a bit. And when you reflect on what it was like, the guru with his chelas living in the forest, sometimes with a wife, sometimes without, and they would be chopping the firewood, they would be doing the cooking, the chelas, right? And there'd also be discussions. It was a way of life. So I don't think anybody has ever revealed whether they have the knowledge of how many students you would have, how many chela you would have. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Chela?
Yes.
Yes. How many chela there would be who would be with the guru, living in the forest, right? Wild animals, fencing, so many things they would have to do. And they would all, the concept was to educate these young people in all the three ways I mentioned: physically, emotionally, and intellectually. So that's the way it was done. But then India was some 75% forest. Now it is less than 30%. And then the population of India would have been a few million. Now we all know what the population is. When I arrived in India, it was 450, I think. So why is teaching the least respected profession in our India? Well, I would say, yes, it's because we've, in our anxiety to catch up with the rest of the world and being persuaded that a developed country, a so-called developed country, is superior to a so-called developing country. Now, what does all that mean? That means industrialization, that means speed, that means pollution. This so-called development I think it's pretty clear it's not the right way to go. So we've really been rushing after these Westerners. Am I wrong? I think so, in following that kind of education. Whereas, yes, that's where we have to sort of put a full stop to what we've been doing. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have exams. I'm not saying we shouldn't study maths, physics, science, chemistry, and all these subjects. But a fresh look at the subjects and questioning of what we're doing with these children who are our responsibility.
The last question.
Just Mira, it's no mean task. It's a very serious task because the parents, often we have to also involve the parents in understanding what we're attempting to do. Interestingly, we've been doing that with our Zooms with our parents. And I'm delighted to see that over the few Zooms we've had and over the period of time, that our parents are beginning to understand more deeply what we're doing in the school. They already know, they put their children in the school, but the depth, I think, has improved.
So the last question is, JK has inspired me in many ways. There is a general misconception that JK students are not competitive in nature and they are secluded a lot in the society. What's your opinion on this?
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a JK student. I read a very interesting email from a young lady who is running the botanical sanctuary, one of the two people running the botanical sanctuary in Wayanad in Kerala. And she said, you can recognize a child from such and such a school in India and such a school abroad, which means that there is not what we're talking about, what we're seeking, which is a sensitivity. Each child's going to be different. Each school is going to be different. That Krishnamurti declared himself. Every Krishnamurti school is going to be different. And so in a school where Krishnamurti's teachings are being understood to some extent, because his teachings, I think It's going to take human beings a long time to really deeply understand what he was saying. When you understand what Krishnamurti is saying, then you're free. So that is a rather serious state of affairs. So you see, that's the whole point. Somebody's totally misconstrued. It's not that you become non-competitive. You understand that competition, if you're a sensitive student in a Krishnamurti school, you understand that to compete with your fellow student and to be better than him or her is destructive of the relationship. If he comes to know that you feel that you're better than him or want to be better than him or her, that's not going to create a good relationship. We need relationships where we have mutual affection. So competitiveness, and it may well be that the student will leave the school having been somewhat sensitive on this question, and then go out into the world and find himself competing with a businessman or whatever it is. So this is work that we have to do. And secluded, well, I mean, only people who are very wealthy, people who are very wealthy can be secluded in India. As for the rest of us, we all have to work. So even people who've gone to Krishnamurti schools. So I don't see, I do think that there's a place for going and spending some time being quiet on oneself. But that's absolutely crucial in one's, especially when you're our age, 45 and more. We need to explore, be inwardly quiet, so that not a thought enters the mind. That is an extraordinary thing. That for anybody who has listened to Krishnamurti, he talks about walking along a river and not a single thought enters the mind. I won't say that. Very rarely do I find that my mind is quiet. But that is the need. That is the need of the hour. That is the need of our times, for people to learn to be really inwardly quiet.